Here's everything you missed in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier trailer. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to go from an unusual couple in WandaVision to the ultimate odd couple on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and thanks to a brand spanking new trailer released during the superb Owl, we have our best look at what we can expect from the Falcon and Bucky Show when it debuts on Disney Plus on March 19th. Now, in case you missed it during a Buffalo Dip-induced food coma, make sure you watch the Falcon and Bucky Show trailer right away because we are going to be verging on spoiler territory in our breakdown. And we're also going to be talking about some WandaVision spoilers in this video too, which I will try to call out as we get to them. So if you're worried about that kind of thing, make like the Falcon and find the nearest exit.
Great.
The trailer begins with something that Falcon, Bucky, and let's face it, probably everyone in the MCU are in desperate need of, and that is therapy. Just loads of therapy. Actually, with its blank concrete walls, interrogation room lighting, and covert aesthetic, this appears to be a debriefing room for whatever mysterious espionage agency Falcon and Bucky are working for. They could be working with S.H.I.E.L.D. or S.W.O.R.D., who, as we've seen in WandaVision, are being positioned as the premier secret agency in the MCU, but our best guess is that they're working with the Joint Counter-Terrorist Center, the CIA's international counterterrorism agency that was headed up by Everett Ross. They were the ones who, during Civil War, last had Baron Zemo in custody, and if Zemo is the big bad of this series, it stands to reason that if he escaped, they'd probably want him back. Now, it seems like nothing has changed between Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes. They know exactly how to push each other's buttons, kinda like how we saw in Civil War.
Can you move your seat up? No.
Now, both Falcon and Bucky think they know the best way to tackle a situation. In Sam's case, he'd rather jump out of a plane than tell Bucky what the plan is. But clearly, teamwork is going to be essential as we head to an iconic Marvel Universe location, Madripoor. It's a small island nation near Singapore. Madripoor is a fictional location from the comics that is heavily connected to Wolverine and the X-Men. It's basically this giant city full of pirates, criminals, and corrupt business people, marked by a deep socioeconomic divide between the ultra-wealthy and the ultra-impoverished. Now, major spoiler alert for the most recent episode of WandaVision, but with the introduction of Evan Peters as Pietro Maximoff into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is yet another connection to the X-Men that is now official MCU canon. And that's not the only potential X-Men connection in this trailer, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. Because first we hear from Baron Zemo, the villain of Civil War and presumably this series, and he reveals his overarching ethos: superheroes cannot be allowed to exist. I have no intention to leave my work unfinished. Now, this work is what he began in Civil War, attempting to tear the Avengers apart and turn public opinion against them. We also see Zemo with his iconic purple mask from the comics, but sadly, I wouldn't keep my fingers crossed to expect a Paste Pot Pete appearance as well. Zemo's remarks are particularly fascinating because in that first shot we see what looks like Falcon and Bucky walking with Zemo through the streets of Madripoor. While Zemo is clearly being set up to be the primary villain of this series, it seems like our heroes may have to work with, or at least cooperate with him on part of their mission. After that, we see Zemo standing in front of a Sokovian memorial honoring all of those who fell during the Battle of Sokovia during Avengers Age of Ultron. While the Avengers did manage to evacuate most of Novigrad's citizens, the Sokovian capital city was completely destroyed during that battle, and Zemo's family was killed in the process. Now, this type of devastation and collateral damage is exactly what ultimately prompted the Sokovia Accords in the first place and radicalized Zemo to become a supervillain. Next up, we get a shot of Aaron Kellyman as one of the masked members of the Flag Smashers. They are a radical militia bent on destroying nationalism and clearly being positioned as one of the primary anti-government forces in this series. In the comics, Flag Smasher was an individual character who helped lead Ultimatum, or the underground, liberated, totally integrated mobile army to unite mankind, if you nasty. And they espoused similarly anti-nationalist goals, putting them in stark contrast with someone like, say, Captain America. Now, next up, we see a shot of Bucky watching a military ceremony, which has me wondering if it's a figure from Bucky's past, or maybe someone like General Thunderbolt Ross, who was instrumental in arresting many of the Avengers during Civil War. We then see Sam holding Captain America's shield, now his shield, in front of a giant poster of Steve Rogers, and it's on Sam's left, a nice nod to the recurring on your left bit that began in Captain America the Winter Soldier and culminated in Avengers Endgame. Then we see Sam training with Cap's shield, followed by Bucky catching it in a fantastic match cut. Now, the legacy of the shield isn't the only thing that Sam's going to have to wrestle with, because clearly throwing it with such physics-defying accuracy like Steve Rogers did is going to take more than a little bit of practice. After that, we come to a rave and an art gallery including Vincent van Gogh's 1889 self-portrait. And while that actual painting is at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, I think this is likely a nightclub in Madripoor. We see Bucky Sparta-kicking some dude in the chest while Zemo and Falcon look on in the background, and people also have their phones out ready to put Bucky on World Star, thereby basically blowing his cover. We also get the return of Sharon Carter, the secret agent niece of Cap's lady love / S.H.I.E.L.D. founder Peggy Carter, also known as Agent 13. When we last saw Sharon, she betrayed the JCTC during Civil War to help Steve Rogers and his allies. As a result, Sharon went on the run, and she was apparently one of the people who got dusted by Thanos, as confirmed by Endgame, but that said, we don't know a whole lot about what she's actually been up to between then and now. Sharon emerges from the darkness with a gun trained on Sam and Bucky, who are still wearing their Madripoor gear. She clearly has been laying low, even when she beats the snot out of a bunch of goons in a shipping yard. After that, we get a glimpse of John Walker, the new government-approved Captain America, who in the comics goes by the codename US Agent. While Steve Rogers did give Sam Wilson his shield and his seal of approval, clearly not everyone agrees with that decision. Our theory is that people like Zemo and the Flag Smashers might be rebelling against people like Walker, who are being positioned as tools of American imperialism and propaganda. Even worse, if they are trying to create new superheroes by resurrecting the super soldier serum program that was used back in World War II to turn Steve Rogers from a weakling with a heart of gold into a towering beef castle, then it could easily explain why Zemo is coming out of the woodwork now to try and finish what he started back in Civil War. And what better target for an anti-nationalist group like the Flag Smashers to go after than a man who's literally dressed as the embodiment of the American flag? And if this is in fact the case, it opens up a few possibilities. One is that we'll learn more about the problematic, complicated history of the Super Soldier program. While Steve Rogers was the biggest success of Operation Rebirth, the Super Soldier Serum program as it was known in the comics, others were also experimented upon. As explained by the Truth, Red, White, and Black miniseries, we learned about Isaiah Bradley, one of 300 African-American soldiers in the US Army who were experimented on to create super soldiers in this chilling parallel to the real-life Tuskegee experiments. Known as the Black Captain America, Isaiah Bradley's story could be one of the ways in which the Falcon and the Winter Soldier explores the complicated legacy of Captain America's shield. And it would give us a great narrative through line to eventually introduce Elijah Bradley, Isaiah's grandson, a superhero known as Patriot, who goes on to become a member of the Young Avengers, which seems all but guaranteed to be coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe at some point down the line. The other possibility here is that we'll learn all about the Weapon Plus program, a top-secret government program designed to turn mutants into super soldiers. Both Captain America and Isaiah Bradley were retroactively considered to be a part of this program, but its most prominent success is something known as Weapon X, who you may know better as Wolverine. Again, this might be wishful thinking, but the inclusion of Madripoor and Evan Peters' Quicksilver, it just feels like another great way to seed the idea of mutants within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, the biggest question we have is actually about who's behind these new superheroes that Zemo seems to be railing against, and what that could mean for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, the likeliest option here seems to be S.W.O.R.D. or someone like General Thunderbolt Ross. While they tried to legislate superheroes with the Sokovia Accords, some threats can only be handled by sentient weapons like the kind S.W.O.R.D. observes and may be trying to build. And rather than having an independent group of heroes acting of their own free will like the Avengers do, someone like Thunderbolt Ross might want super soldiers that act on his orders and follow the government's wishes. So perhaps this could actually be a prelude to the introduction of the Thunderbolts into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And for those who don't know, they were a group who were founded by Baron Zemo in the comics, and they were a group of supervillains who actually masqueraded as superheroes. In the wake of the Civil War comics story, they were tasked with tracking down and arresting heroes who violated the Superhuman Registration Act, so they do have a precedent for working as government operatives, at least in the comics. While we don't have firm evidence for this theory yet, the existence of the Raft in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a prison designed to hold superpowered bad guys, has us thinking that it's not outside the realm of possibility. Anyway, back to the trailer. We see more fight scenes as Falcon uses not only his wings to deflect bullets, but Cap's shield to seemingly cause a massive explosion of some sort in a stockyard where they're facing off with Baron Zemo and some bad guys. Then we reach one of my favorite tropes in action and adventure storytelling, fighting on top of a moving vehicle. Falcon and Bucky square off with the Flag Smashers on top of two big rigs speeding along a European highway. Clearly, Erin Kellyman's character is not to be underestimated because she nearly kills Bucky during this fight. Falcon takes a moment to gloat, but then evades flying face first into a moving vehicle by flying underneath the moving trucks like he's in the first Fast and the Furious movie. Now, the trailer ends with perhaps the greatest battle of minds in MCU history. It's a staring contest between Falcon and Bucky. And it all ends with their handler/therapist chiding them by saying,
"Just blink, sweet Jesus. I mean, how old are you?"
Well, in Bucky's case, the answer is complicated because he was kept in cryogenic stasis and he was snapped out of existence. Now, Bucky was born on March 10th, 1917, but he got snapped in 2018, which would put him right around 101 years old. However, depending on when this takes place, presumably shortly after the events of Avengers Endgame, he might actually be approaching 102. Either way, yes, both Falcon and especially Old Man Bucky should know better. But in the meantime, folks, tell us, what did you think of this trailer? Did you spot any Easter eggs that we missed? Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.